What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video in the series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hiya Exquisite toy. The Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Rodan. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at every single Hiya Exquisite Basic figure in the Godzilla line. Every repaint, reissue, 2.0, whatever they put out, we're going to be taking a look at them all in release order. Let's get started. So here is the figure in all its glory. Everything you see here on screen is what you get in the box. You get the figure and a stand for it. We will be taking a look at that stand more in depth later on. This stand, for starters, sucks. I'm just going to say it.
I'm not quite done bitching about this stand.
But let's go ahead and get the figure off the stand and take a look at the figure itself. So let's not waste any time and get right into the detail and paint. Now, in King of the Monsters, Rodan was trapped inside of a volcano, and this figure really replicates that detailing quite well. Head to toe, finger to finger, tip to tip, the entire sculpt of this figure is going to be covered with a crazy amount of scales and spikes that really give the appearance that this is a flying piece of magma. I mean, just take a look at this detailing. Again, it's covered on every single inch of this figure. All these layered scales from the shoulders extends all the way down to the smallest points on the tip of the wings. Even the head is going to have all of these small creases and folds to replicate scaling all the way to the beak of the mouth. In fact, even the teeth are textured like this. It's crazy the amount of detailing that they managed to sculpt onto this figure. The wings themselves have all these layers of scales, just like the body, while the front of the wing has almost this reptilian scaling going on. The back of the wing has almost a man, I thought my... Okay, we're good now. Oh, dear God, it's fucking hot here. Where was I? Then you look at the back of the wing, and it becomes a completely different texture pattern. Almost looks like ripples on water. This layered texture is incredible. Moving on to the body, which is also going to be covered in these very nice layered scales. The body's also going to have all these spikes running up and down the abdomen, and especially going down the back. Moving on to the legs, again, that layered scale detailing is going to go from the thighs all the way down to the feet. It's subtle, but even the toes have those reptilian scaling going on. Now, if it wasn't obvious already, the real seller of this figure is going to be that immaculate paint job. The paint scheme on this figure is pretty simple, all things considered. The base figure is going to be this orange color you see on the wings here, and then this thing is just covered in an ash black dry brush. I mean, they really went to town on this dry brushing. That dry brushing is going to be dominating the body, neck, and legs. I don't particularly mind the look, but it is a little jarring when you're looking at the figure head on, just to have this really dark body and then much brighter wings. I think it could have used some fading, just like the wings did. While we're on the subject of paint, let's take a closer look at the head now. So first off, we can tell the tongue is this very nice, slightly desaturated, almost skin tone pink. It's subtle just enough to make the tongue pop out when compared to the darker body, but not bright enough to be distracting. It looks very nice. Speaking of very nice, let us now take a look at those eyes. I mean, these eyes are so small that it's hard for me to get my camera to get an extreme close-up of them. I mean, holy shit, look how tiny these eyes are. And they were still able to get two different colors of paint on that without any spillage. Now, in the spirit of fairness, while I am extremely impressed at what they were able to do with these eyes, I do have to say that these eyes are pretty inaccurate. The base color it shows for that eye is going to be an orange, very similar to the body of the figure. But those eyes are actually supposed to be yellow with a black pupil. While we're on the subject of being completely fair to this figure, the detailing, I do want to stress, is very, very impressive. But the body of this figure is noticeably softer than the rest of this figure. You can especially notice on the tail here, the sculpted detail is still there. I'm not saying that there's a lack of detailing sculpted on the body, but that detailing is a lot smoother compared to, say, the head or the arms. And I don't think it's a case of too many layers of paint this time. I mean, just to the touch, this sculpt is very smooth, and then you move on to the arms, which is admittedly a different material, but it would have been nice to see a little more definition on the body, in the sculpt specifically. You are also going to see the copyright information printed on the bottom of either wing, but just something to know if you're planning on taking photography with this figure, that information is just right there on the front of the wing. Would have been nice perhaps to seen it move to somewhere on the back. All right, let's move into articulation now. This should be pretty straightforward as this figure doesn't have a lot going on for it. Starting with the head, the jaw is on a hinge. It can open about that wide, and it can close. My jaw is very loose, so it doesn't like to stay closed. Holy shit, I got it to stay closed on the first try. Let's go. The neck is going to be on a barbell, so you're going to get a ball joint at the head and a ball joint at the neck. Now, that said, the barbell joint is pretty weird. It's curved like a crowbar, so it's going to stick straight out and then bend up a little bit. What this is going to allow you to do is get Rodan looking straight up pretty naturally, and the neck will kind of curve up like that, like a bird would. But in terms of looking down, Rodan can only look down about that far. The shoulders are going to be on ball joints, so you can get them splayed up about that far, and you can bring them all the way down to the body, and then you can get them flapping about that far down and that far up. The upper body is on a ball joint, but it's pretty limited due to the sculpt. It can look down. You can get an ab crunch about that far, and you can straighten up the back about that far. Due to the sculpt of the back, you are not able to get this figure rotating all the way around, but you are able to get it bent about that far, and the same the other side. Actually, you could probably force it to go all the way around, but I'm not going to do that. The tail is also on a ball joint, but this is probably the most disappointing aspect of this figure because that ball joint is extremely limited due to the sculpt. The tail can go up that far, straighten out that far, and it can rotate all the way around. It can wiggle side to side just a tiny bit. The thighs are going to be on ball joints, but due to the sculpt, they too are pretty limited. They can splay out just a little bit and then straighten in just a little bit. You can get them rotated all the way around, but again, because of the sculpt behind the thighs, they're going to rotate at an angle. The knees are on hinges. They can bend pretty stiffly at that just shy of 90 degrees, and they can rotate all the way around. And the ankles are also on hinges. You can get them bent up about that far, and you can straighten them all the way out that far. Now, because of those hinges and because of the way that the thighs are sculpted, you are able to get Rodan's legs pressed all the way up against his body, which is very nice to see. And you're able to get the feet craned all the way forward, just like so. Now, for the real seller of this figure, going back to the wings here, as everyone knows by now, these wings are, in fact, bendable. There's a wire going from the shoulder all the way to about right there. When this figure came out, there were concerns of the longevity of these wires and the plastic around the wires, but I gotta say, here we are 2.5 years later, and my figure at least is holding up remarkably well. I've inspected this figure very closely every now and then, and to my eyes, there's only one tiny sign of any potential damage on my wing, and that is going to be right at the end here. There's a tiny split in the plastic. That split has not caused any significant damage, and in my opinion, that split is really only there because the hole in the plastic is pressed right up against what I'm assuming is the seam. Other than that, there's no paint damage. There's no damage to the plastic. The wire hasn't broken. I don't know what is in this figure, but it's held up remarkably well over the years. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about this figure before we start to wrap up here. First of all, as you can see, you are able to get Rodan standing on its feet without any kind of support. That being said, it's not as easy as it looks. The legs, specifically the hinge joints on the legs, are not as strong as they need to be to support the weight of the upper body. I mean, those wings in particular, they're very heavy. It does take a lot of finessing the wings and the body to get it balanced just right to get him standing up, which is why they included this. So this is the stand the figure comes with. This is the Hiya stand. And this stand fucking sucks. I'm just going to say it. This is a terrible stand. It's their attempt at a Tamashiak stand, and it's very long, but it has serious stability issues. For starters, these joints, whoopsies, well, there's one example right there. All of these joints, you're not able to tighten them down. So the tolerance that you get out of the box is what you're going to get out of this stand. And let's go ahead and throw Rodan back on the stand to show you how bad the tolerances are when trying to support a figure like Rodan. As you can see, if I try to crane Rodan down, it just kind of falls apart. You know, I might have just disproven myself here. How embarrassing. Look, trust me, this stand, it likes to collapse in on itself. Real quick addition, I'm filming this after I finished filming the video. I'm taking photos right now for the video, and I'm not quite done bitching about this stand. This stand's been falling apart left and right ever since I stopped rolling, and I just want to bring attention to the fact that it's the claw specifically. This claw is so unstable. They really needed to change the design of this piece specifically. These little arms are just pegged in and are held in by friction. These needed to be screwed in or pinned in. I can't stress that enough. This right here is going to cause your figure to fall off the stand, fall off a shelf, fall off your stand as well. But that is going to be the biggest cause for concern on this figure. Okay, I just wanted to add that. Okay, so part of the problem with this stand is the fact that every joint just kind of sits on top of each other, just like that. If my camera will focus. Here's a claw, attaches in. It freely rotates, and the weight of this figure will get it to freely rotate until it pops off. That's probably why my stand is acting unusually stable, is because I've actually gone ahead and I've glued every other joint together so it doesn't fall apart. The only joints that I left unglued would be the base and the very tip of the claw there, just in case. I think a claw is a good idea, but I would have liked to have seen a cradle piece or something at least sculpted to this figure. If the claw piece was unique to the mold of Rodan's back, or if they gave you an additional claw piece that was unique to Rodan's back, I should say, it would have been perfect. But that claw's all you get. And this is especially odd because the packaging features a cradle right there. We should have gotten a cradle like that, especially if they had one sampled. So in terms of getting Rodan in flying poses, you have two options, and that's to put the claw on its back or to put the claw on its front, and either way you run into the same problem. This claw is not designed for this figure, and so you kind of have to just balance it just right and hope that it stays put. All right, enough ranting about the stand. Let's start wrapping up this video. So Rodan is going to have an impressive wingspan of about 15 inches. And the body is going to be about 5 inches long. If you were to get the head craned all the way up, the absolute max length of the body is actually going to be about 5.5 inches long. Now, unlike the last two videos, I don't have the Monster Arts Rodan anymore. I used to own it. But unfortunately, that means I am not able to give you a size comparison to something like that. I also don't own the NECA Rodan. So this is about the best I can give you for now. This is Rodan compared to the Hiya Exquisite Basic Godzilla vs. Kong Godzilla and Kong, the last two figures we took a look at. And man, did these look so good together. This line is really starting to shape up into something incredible. And as always, here we have a banana for scale. Okay, closing thoughts for real this time before I get out of this godforsaken oven of a studio. This is an incredible Rodan. Probably the best MonsterVerse Rodan that we've gotten. The sculpt on the Monster Arts was pretty comparable from what I remember. It's the paint that makes this stand out so much compared to the Monster Arts Rodan. That and the wings. I cannot stress enough how much the bendable wings really add to the expressiveness of this figure. This is a figure you're going to be having flying in the air, and the wings carry the heavy lifting. What doesn't carry the heavy lifting is the stand. That's the one thing that I really think Hiya should have done better on. This stand sucks. It's a lot more stable if you glue it down like I did, but even then, this thing is just kind of a struggle to actually get in any kind of unique pose. I do appreciate that they included a stand. I don't remember if I mentioned it in the Godzilla and Kong video, but regardless if they're a flying character or not, I think that every figure should just come with a stand, because your options for display and stability just increase dramatically with a stand, even a basic stand like this. Now, for the question, should you get this figure today? Yes. Resoundingly yes. This figure has held up remarkably well over the last 2.5 years. I have yet to experience any issues with the bendy wire degrading or the plastic degrading. Not saying that it won't happen, not saying that it hasn't happened, but personally, this is more or less how I have my figure displayed on my shelf, and it's remained that way for 2 years, and taking it off the shelf for this video, there's been no issues. As far as I'm aware, this figure, I think, is still available. They've been really good at making sure that these figures stay in stock, reissuing waves of them. There is a repaint version of this figure. We'll talk about that later on. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you did stick around, as always, let me know in the comments if there's anything you think I can improve on, anything you'd like to see. Until next time, guys, see ya.